How's it going, guys? ShizuCats here, and today we'll be taking a look at the newest cleric introduced into Octopath COTC, Molrusso. Molrusso is a character that was introduced very early on in JP, being just released 2 months into the game, which made her the second regen caster introduced after Teo. As a result, she was seen at the time as a fairly strong unit that could be brought into higher difficulty content. However, as time passed, people realized that Molrusso just doesn't offer quite enough outside of her regen, which caused her to be left out of teams in favor of other units. With the EN schedule as accelerated and out of order as it is, Molrusso has some stiff competition in the regen caster role already in the game, with units such as Alphen and Agnes already being in the pool of playable characters. However, Square Enix has decided to rebalance Molrusso a bit, similar to how they buffed Lionel last month. So we'll be taking a look at those changes and seeing if they allow her to make a bigger impact despite her late appearance. With regards to voice role, Molrusso is voiced by Sayaka Senbongi. She's best known for her roles as Shuna from That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, and Mume from Cabaneri of the Iron Fortress. And if you're on top of anime airing this season, you might recognize her as the drunk bassist Kikuri from Bocchi the Rock. She also voices another character already in Octopath COTC, Shelby the 4-star apothecary. Molrusso's most notable stats are her SP and speed, both of which are relatively high for clerics. Her speed makes her well suited to breaking enemies to set up her allies to deal large amounts of nuke damage on broken enemies, or for using heals in the middle of the turn between multiple enemy actions. Speaking of breaking enemies, let's start by taking a look at one of the assets of Molrusso's kit that got changed in the English version. She previously had a 1-hit 230 wind nuke, which was changed to a 3-hit wind single target, costing 40 SP. I'm personally a big fan of this change as it allows Molrusso to provide the team with a lot of extra breaking power in between her regen casts. While the better skill to remove from her kit would have certainly been the 170 potency wind instead of the 230, allowing her to keep a high damage option in her kit, I still think it's better to have the multi-hit option than not. As I would rather be spending my BP on regen casts most of the time rather than on nukes, I think this is a perfectly fine change to make. On the physical side, Molrusso has a 3-hit staff single target to go along with her 3-hit wind. With access to 3-hit attacks in both the physical and magical side, she's able to put in a lot of work in between regen casts. Before taking a look at Molrusso's other options, let's take a quick look at her passives. The first, learned at 1-star, increases the durations of all of Molrusso's buffs by 1 turn. This is mainly going to be affecting her regen durations, but also affects one more skill in her kit. Her second passive at 3-star was another part of her kit that was changed for the English version. In EN, both Molrusso and her ally in the same row have immunity to paralysis. This change was very clearly targeted at the Ritu Cup, as certain attacks in Ritu's kit can paralyze your units. Personally, I'm a fan of this change. Previously, it was giving the ally in the same row 50% ailment resistance, so it didn't even affect Molrusso herself. And given that paralysis is a very high impact status ailment compared to some of the other ones such as poison, I would much prefer full immunity to that so I don't have to worry about it. Now let's take a look at her healing options, of which she has many. The main ones she'll be using are her regen skills, which are the main reason you would bring her on your squad. When she's not at 5-star, she has a full front row 110 potency regen, and at 5-star, it goes up to 140 potency. Both of them last 2 to 5 turns based on boost level, but are increased to 3 to 6 turns thanks to her passive. As a regen caster, this is a definite staple skill that you'll be bringing basically at all times. Outside of these, she has a few more single ally options. The first is a 230 potency heal, which also applies 2 turns of regen to the target ally, or 3 turns counting her passive. The second, only available at 5-star, is a 230 potency heal, which applies 2 turns of 15% defense and magic defense up to the chosen ally. Again, boosted to 3 turns thanks to her passive. Neither of the durations of these skills can be extended using boost points, as using BP will only affect the heal, but since the value of the heal is so high already, boosting it will hardly make a difference anyway. The latter of the 2 skills is, in my opinion, a good skill to bring to use on allies who weren't able to make it back to full HP thanks to just the regen alone. Thanks to Molrusso's relatively high speed, she'll hopefully be able to get her action in before too many enemies have had a chance to move and potentially KO her target. Additionally, stacking the 15% defensive values with another ally's buffs, such as Hasumi's, can be very effective. And if you cast Molrusso's spell on multiple different allies, she could potentially allow your entire team to hit the defensive cap at the same time. This is also a useful skill to pair with a tank such as Devon or Gilderoy, since they can give themselves 15% up on their defensive skills, and then complete the 30% cap with help from Molrusso. My recommendations for skills to bring on Molrusso start with her full front row regen, whichever you're able to bring based on how many stars your Molrusso has. This is her staple ability and the reason that you would bring her on your team. From there, it depends on whether you're going for general play or for a more specific composition. For general play, I would bring both her 3-hit staff and 3-hit wind for good flexibility on her offensive options. In a more specific organized comp, I would bring just one of the 2 offensive skills, whichever is relevant for the current content, in addition to her single ally heal with defensive buffs. Overall, Molrusso's kit isn't exactly very flashy, and it simply suffers from being a very early design. With the changes to her kit in the English version, it gets a decent bit better, but is still very basic compared to other units that were released much later in JP, such as Liana. It's abundantly clear that her changes were targeted at making the Ritu Cup easier, but due to the sheer number of fantastic wind units already available in EN, adding Molrusso to the list doesn't really do too much. That being said, she's a solid regen caster that you can look to add to your roster if you don't have one already, but if you do have better regen casters, Molrusso is definitely a unit that is not very high priority on your list. And that concludes my overview on Molrusso. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys think of the Molrusso changes as well if you have any opinions on it, and until next time, this has been CheezyCats. See ya!